crusader with a comic book cry. Bad guy. Bad guy.
So, Richard, we're now with Richard Batey from Bat Cars. For those of you that don't know Bat Cars, you've obviously not been reading the 7 Spot Live magazine. So, Richard's going to tell us all about his history, how he became to be where he is. We'll have a quick tour of his workshop as well. And yeah, we'll talk about his Bat Cars, which I'll let Richard talk to you about it. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks, John. Right, so first of all, thanks for all the support that you've been giving us, because I really appreciate it. It's been a bit of an unusual project, this, how I got to this, and it's nice to be welcomed back into the industry the way I have, because this is my second rodeo, as it were. But we were just talking before that we started recording there, and I think it's probably best if I explain how I ended up here.
Yeah.
This is all pretty new for us, so I'm going to go right back to when I was 8 years old, and the teacher was going around the class saying, what do you want to do when you grow up? And people were saying I want to be a fireman and I want to be a policeman and all this sort of stuff. And it gets to me and I says, I want to be a car designer. And the teacher was like, well, right, yeah, that's something different. Well, you'll have to stick in at school, Richard, and go to this thing called university, and be a good boy, get good exam results, and then you might be able to apply for a job to be a car designer at somewhere, And I really didn't like school, and school didn't like me, and I started tattooing when I was 11.
Wow.
My mates I was the sort of kid that hung about with all the kids, and them older kids hung about with all the kids. So my age group was like 11 to 18. And some of the lads had like tattoos, and I was like, how did that happen? How do you do art on, because I was always into art, and always drawing cars and stuff. And so he told us, you can get a needle and a bit of cotton and some ink and just, do it like that. And next thing I was stabbing myself with Indian ink and stuff like that. And then I started doing tattoos on my mates. And then I realised it was quite slow. So I stole a Braun independent electric razor off my dad, took the top bit off. There was a shaft that went side to side, attached a needle to it. I'm still like 11, 12-year-old here. And then wired it up to a motorbike battery. And that now I had like some sort of makeshift tattoo machine, and I was able to do bigger tattoos. So I started on a back piece, a Guns N' Roses back piece on one of my school pals. And the machine, because it was only supposed to be little batteries, and I've got it on a 12-volt motorbike battery, it blew up. And smoke coming out of it, and that. And then my mother walked in the bedroom and captured us doing the tattoo and that. So that was like the end of the first part of my tattooing career. But I always loved cars. I completely failed at school. I barely went to any exams. Do you know what I mean? I didn't care about school at all. So that trajectory that they said, wasn't happening as far as becoming a car designer. And but by the time I was 18, I designed a car and I wanted to build it. So I got myself a welder and an old Mark 1 Astra, because I knew I needed to learn to weld to build this car. Started doing that on the front of the house, and then the winter came, got cold, got myself a lock-up garage, and started working from there. And then my friends started coming in and saying, Richard, can you fix my car? It's failed its MOT. You've got a welder. It needs welding. So now I was getting paid to learn to weld, So I ended up doing that for about a year and didn't get anywhere with my car. So I says, after a year, I says, right, I'm sick of this. I want to do what I want to do. So new rules. If I'm going to work on your car, I'm going to customize your car. I'm doing what I want to do to it. And And then the first car that came in was a Vauxhall Nova that needed a front bumper, and he went out with a full body kit, custom body kit. All that was my first, like, fiberglass experience. I put a motorbike petrol tank in the top of a motorbike petrol tank into the side of the car, so you could have the bolt-in aero fuel cap. I found a motorbike fairing in a crashed fairing in a hedge, so I used that for the vents and put those into the quarter panel. Sierra Cosworth, whale tail, and all this sort of stuff. Painted the car pearl white. So that was my first, like, do what you want to my car custom build. And that went straight into Total Vauxhall magazine. So that was my first magazine feature. And then I've done a Honda CRX.
Yeah, you've been in a few. You've been in quite a few magazines and stuff, haven't you? Yeah, yeah.
Over the years, yeah. So then I did a Honda CRX, Toyota Supra backlights in it, Perspex bonnet, paint job, body kit, all that sort of stuff. That went into Japanese Performance magazine. And so I like kind of caught this wave of the modified car scene kicking off. This was 1999, 2000. So I caught the max power wave, and I rode that for like 7-8 years. And it was brilliant, like hitting shows all the time. Like, the show season was absolutely wild. I did a car for Falcon Security, like a promo car for a business, and I painted it for free. It's the one with the flames on. Jim will stick some pictures in. That I painted that car for free, but the deal, and that car's still going today. It's over 20 years old, and it's still on the show scene today. So the paint work. It's had a little bit of work done to it because it was left in a farm for like 15 years, sort of thing, just sat there. But someone's just bought it just recently and got it back together. But the deal with that car was that I went everywhere it went. So he was doing all the shows, Max Power, Santa Pod, everywhere. So like, the deal was, although he didn't pay us for the car, he had to get me in the show and sort out my accommodation, so I could go to all these shows for free. So like, for years, that was the deal. And I used to go and look after the car, make sure it was polished, and that it had so much ass on that bonnet you wouldn't believe. Like Lucy Pinder, Katie Price, Jordan before she was Jordan the first time, when she was Katie Price the first time. It was wild times. And obviously a load of different cars and that, and competitions and shows and trophies and magazine features. And I got into organising car shows. We put on a big car show in Carlisle. We had Ministry of Sound doing the after show party. It was sponsored by Fuel Wheels and the Daily Sport newspaper. There is a video of it on YouTube. And Wicked Alco Pops. Yeah, Wicked Alco Pops was also a sponsor of it. We had Russ Swift there, the stunt driver. We had a jet-powered quad bike came from Holland. It was a wild weekend, but we lost an absolute fortune because I always swore I'd never do events after this because I didn't realise, like looking for the date to do it. That I found an empty weekend, so like, right, that's when we'll do it. And then a few months after that, long into the organisation of the show and paying deposits and stuff like that, we found out that there was a good reason that weekend, but there wasn't any car shows on. It was because the first day of the flipping World Cup. I'm not into football, so So we were like, do we do it? Do we not? Do we do it? Do we not? We went ahead. We got an Arctic wagon with a massive screen on it to play the match when the match came on. But yeah, it was just a disaster. Yeah, we put on a good show, but the show was poorly attended because of the football. So I always swore I wouldn't do events again after that, but I have been messing on with them again just recently. But yeah, so then the long story short, then the recession came, and first the credit crunch, which is very similar to the cost of living crisis that we're having now. And then we went into recession, and people just stopped being able to pay us, And I got robbed before this. I was in an old tram shed. Yeah, I had to move out of there, right? Because they sold the land, so they gave us 3 months to move out. And I'd just employed Jonathan, my first employee who did engine tuning, and they says, "Oh, you need to get out." So now I was paying him to pack stuff, and I'd literally given up my wage to pay him, so that I could expand the business. And I'd only just started making money. But anyway, we had to move out of there. We got given 3 months. We moved to a place called Penton, which was about 10 miles out of town in the middle of nowhere. And it ended up getting robbed 4 times in 6 weeks. Long story short, absolutely cleaned us out. They just kept on coming back. We were sleeping in the garage trying to stop them robbing the garage. It was unbelievable. It was just this little crackhead that, just saw it as easy pickings sort of thing. And anyway, so I was shut for 6 months. Ended up on a old military site that was, all like security fenced and stuff like that for the security. 7,500 square foot warehouse, rolling road, spray booth, shop, the whole shebang. It was a full service. The only thing that we weren't really doing was the leather work for the interiors. We were doing sound systems, engine tuning. I watched the dyno go from like when cars were like hitting 250 brake horsepower, 275 was getting mental. We had two fat lads sat in the boot of Nissan Skylines like trying to hold them on the dyno because it was. But the whole technology, yeah. So the whole like things changed, and it went to 350 brake, 500 brake, and now it's just crazy numbers. But um, so yeah, that was the point that I was starting doing the car shows and stuff like that as well. And then the recession came, so it like killed a lot of it. Do you know what I mean? And I ended up going bankrupt. So then my dad died. So I was a like a depressed wreck, really, so stressed out, and I had all this energy of all this stuff that I was doing, but I didn't have now anywhere for it to go. And I think it just sort of went back into me and self-destructed us. Do you know what I mean? So I was a bit of a mess for a while, and sort of coming out of that side of things. I was in the kitchen, and it was about a year after it, and I was thinking to myself, you beat yourself up for all the things that went wrong, but you haven't give yourself any credit for the things that went right. And at that moment I was, yeah, and obviously made myself ill with my thoughts, essentially. Do you know what I mean? Like the stress and everything, how you reacting to it. I knew it was all mental. Um, but yeah, I was, I felt like I had anxiety. I thought I was having a heart attack. You know what I mean? But it was anxiety. And I was on the pills for this and pills for that and pills for the other. And I'm like, nah, this isn't right. Like, so anyway, I was thinking to myself, you beat yourself up and you haven't give yourself any credit for the things that went right. And then at that moment, this little voice in my head was saying, you achieved your childhood dream. And I thought, hang on a minute. When I was 8, I said I wanted to be a car designer. And I was getting paid. I was charging people to do a pencil drawing of what I was going to do to their car. I'd charge them for the drawing because they might take it somewhere else, obviously. And then because I've been charging for my art since I was 14 years old. So I've been a professional artist since I was 14. I started doing murals when I was 14, painted the children's ward on the infirmary when I was 14, and that was my first paid job. And I realised I could get paid for my art, and I've been paid for my art ever since. So like, you know, that the cars are just art for me. Do you know what I mean? So like, I was charging people to do drawings of the concept cars of what I was going to do to their car, and then they were saying, "Do that to my car," and then they were paying us to do the car. So I hadn't realised it, but I was actually like designing cars for people. Just I wasn't working for Ford. Do you know what I mean?
You're doing what you said you were going to do when you were 8. Yeah, yeah, and it's just suddenly dawned on you. You're there.
Yes, exactly. But yes, exactly. I hadn't realised it because I was living that life. I was in it. I was doing it, but I hadn't like wound back to that time when I was 8, and I'd said that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So at that moment, I was like, you know, how the fuck did I do that? Because I completely failed at school. Everybody said I would be a failure. And I've achieved a childhood dream that is kind of like seemed very much out of the question, you know, and I'd done it myself. So I really wanted to know how.
Yeah, and the teachers at school had said you've got to go to university and art
Yes.
school and get all these qualifications and do this, do that, and you hadn't. You know, you'd not dropped out, but school didn't work for you.
It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense how I'd achieved it. So at that point, I was very much like, how did I do this? And the next day, because I realized if I knew how I did it, I could do it again. So the next day, a friend was, he came round and he passed us a DVD, knocks on the door, passes us a DVD. I says, "What's this?" He'd ripped some off the internet, you know. I says, "What's this?" And he says, "It's the film that goes with the book that your other mate gave you that you haven't read, because I know you don't like reading books. So I thought you might watch the film." Yeah. So I stuck this film on, right? And it was a documentary called The Secret, and it was about the Lord of Attraction.
That was just a taste. The full-length conversation with Richard runs about an hour and a quarter, and it's waiting for you on our YouTube channel. But it's not free. It's a thank you to our channel members who make everything we do at 7 Spot possible. If you'd like to hear the whole story, the bankruptcy, the collapsed lung, the Buddha quote, and how Richard achieved the childhood dream that every teacher told him was impossible, click the join button below and come on in. And while you're there, you'll also get access to our members-only bonus coverage page on 7spot.live with exclusive photos and extra walk-around footage from Richard's workshop. Cheers and thanks for watching.